Welcome to the Chinook Entrepreneurial Challenge. And I've had the opportunity of knowing this from day one when volunteers put it together. Bonnie Elliott was the lady who did all the work, and I got to judge. And at that time, we had Medicine Hat and Tabor and Lethbridge involved in it. And it was really cool stuff, and it's continued to grow and grow and grow. So really appreciate you being here tonight. These fine folks, Darlene's excellent resource. Penny's an excellent resource. So anything you need, give them a shout. And then the rest of us will be available for you to connect with us at any point in time too. We're very generous. That's why I have no life at home. But I'm married to a grade 3 teacher, and she spends her whole life with children. And she checks out the middle of August and checks back in the middle of July. So I get to see her for about a month of the year, and the rest of the time she's off thinking about how can I get this child to learn more mathematics, or this child to pick up on their reading skills. It blows me away, her dedication. So very, very interesting. So I'm dedicated here, she's dedicated there, and we have a lot of fun when we ever do see each other. Tonight, I've been asked to teach about the business model canvas and the customer value proposition in 2 hours and a little bit. This course is taught over 13 weeks in the University of Lethbridge. And then at Tech Connect, I did a 6-week session in the fall. So what I've done is I've given you information that you can go back and review in case you missed a few points today, because it will be sort of a fire hose experience for a few of you. And that's okay, because you can go back, you can listen to the videos, you can take a look at the information that I'm providing you tonight here, which is all out there, and it's a great opportunity for you to sort of get wet a little bit in this concept of starting your own business, creating your own business plan. Last year, we judged, was it in April, I guess, too, or May? First part of May, I think it was. We had some really interesting people. What I would say is the ones that didn't do as well as was planned are folks who had not validated themselves in the marketplace, which means simply, have you gone out and asked customers if they want your product? And so the first little bit here, I'm going to show you 5, 6 little very quick segment videos that some of you that have been at Tech Connect have seen at the beginning. But what it does is it starts to paint a picture for you of running a business and a business idea and how we put it in a canvas and we can play with it. Because typically the first idea is not the right idea. You'll have that idea, and then you go out and ask people, and they're really bored about the idea. And so what we want to do is give you the tools to think about what would you do to go out and find information and check with people. Course that I run called New Venture Business. We had some international students in it in the fall. One guy, Antonio, came from Spain, and he said, from my observations, people in Lethbridge think tacos came from Spain. He said, my job is to prove that they come from Mexico, not Spain. So I would like to open up a Spanish restaurant. So he and a group of other people in his team went out and asked 303 people over 8 weeks what they thought about the idea of a Spanish restaurant. Okay? And he got overwhelming approval. The thing is, you really got to know how to run a restaurant to make money on the bottom line. And the cost of labor has gone up. So the margins have been reducing. Now, the idea is great, but does he want to do the work that's required for the money that he's going to make on the bottom line? Or are there other opportunities that bring an easier lifestyle? Because you basically marry yourself in a restaurant. And it's often hard to get funding from a bank to fund a restaurant. I worked at the Business Development Bank for a number of years consulting, and that was just one thing that they did not fund. And I think the big brands are the same. And Darlene, what would be the focus at Community Futures if they came and asked you for money for a restaurant?
We'll always look at it, but restaurants are extremely high risk, so we're going to want probably a little bit more collateral than we normally would.
And what does collateral mean?
Your firstborn.
Skin in the game, right? And in my world, when I worked in the construction manufacturing, we had bonding companies that had my children assigned to them. I got out of the game, we tore the pieces of paper up, and I got to keep my kids. So nothing's for free. Is that fair to say? There is always something. So what we want you to do is find an idea that you're very passionate in, but fundamentally, somebody else has got to feel there's a need for it, and as well, they're willing to pay for it. So when we look at the cannabis industry right now, there's, well, in excess of 30 plus applications for stores to be opened in Lethbridge. There will be some winners and there will be some losers. And the question will be is, what's the magic to it all? And that'll be very interesting to see happen. It's like these yogurt shops, soft yogurt shops. They came 40 years ago, I was old enough to remember, and they came back, and now they're gone. And there's these trends that happen in different industries. And right now, the housing market is down like this in dear old Alberta. So are you supporting the housing world that now has an excess glut of houses? It hasn't for years. It's been absolutely amazing in Lethbridge, how many houses have been built for the years. But is the business that you're considering tied into some of these markets that are on the decline? Or can you find a business that takes advantage of on-decline markets and lower income? So there's some opportunities there, but we'll first start off with a few of these very short vids that start to put things into play, and I want to actually go out of this.
This is the story of Beth, her friend Carl, and an idea they believed could become a great business. It's the story of how they succeeded, and if you're an entrepreneur or anyone with a great idea, it could easily be your story too. But let's begin at the beginning. See, even if you have a great idea, success is far from assured. That's because for every great idea that has shaped our world, there are thousands of seemingly great ideas that have flopped. In order to succeed, a great business idea needs a great business model, and they're not the same thing. Once your idea meets the world, it will meet customers. If they don't care about the problem your idea solves for them, it's game over. But even if customers love your value proposition, you can fail if your business model is not scalable and financially sustainable. You'll need to find reliable channels to reach and acquire your customers. You'll need to build an infrastructure that won't collapse as your business begins to grow. Failing to do just one of these things can mean death to your business, however great your idea is. That's why your first work is to search for the right business model, to map this world of challenges so it can be tamed and organized, allowing you to explore it, manage it, and plan for it. What if there was a tool that could help you with this challenge, simply and visually? A tool that makes it easier to stress test your ideas, track your progress, and avoid breaking the bank along the way. What if it was possible to design and test business models in a way that gives your idea a better shot at rising to the level of the great businesses that are shaping our world? It is, and though the journey for these guys, and for you, won't be a walk in the park, all you'll need is your creativity, willingness to work, and passion for your idea. We'll give you the rest. This is the business model canvas. It's just what Beth and Carl will need to craft a powerful business model, and it can do the same for you. Let's dive in and see how it works. There are 9 essential building blocks that make up any business model. When you get all 9 blocks working together, you'll have answered the fundamental questions any business model must solve. We'll start here with customer segments. These are all the people or organizations for which you're creating value. For each segment, you have a specific value proposition. These are the bundles of products and services that create value for your customers. Channels describe through which touchpoints you're interacting with customers and delivering value. The customer relationships outline the types of relationships you're establishing with your customers and how you're acquiring and retaining them. Pricing mechanisms through which your business model captures value are documented under revenue streams. The key resources show which assets are indispensable in your business model, so you can describe the infrastructure you need to create, deliver, and capture value. The key activities show which things you need to be able to perform well. The key partners show who can help you leverage your business model, since you won't own all key resources yourself, nor will you perform all key activities. And once you understand your business model's infrastructure, you'll also have an idea of its cost structure. Any business model can be mapped this way: 9 building blocks working to reinforce and strengthen each other. But before you make a model for yourself, it helps to see what a breakthrough business model looks like in action. Like this one. Low-cost airlines revolutionized air travel thanks to their disruptive business model. Let's first look at their value proposition. A low-cost airline offers ultra-cheap flights to their main customer segment, budget travelers, by adopting a no-frills policy. And this leads to additional revenue streams because customers pay for their ticket and additional fees on items like food and drink, priority boarding, and luggage. The airlines save even more money through their choice of channels, selling only through call centers and the internet, making for efficient, if not always convenient, customer relationships that are automated and often impersonal. Okay, that covers the right side of the canvas, the part everyone can see. The left side of the canvas is what's going on backstage. Like their choice of key resources, they reduce maintenance and training costs by using a single aircraft model for the whole fleet. And they only fly to cheap airports where it's cost efficient to land or where they even get paid to touch down. Planes that do land have quick turnarounds, so they get back in the air earning money as quickly as possible. And they form key partnerships with others in the travel industry, like car rental, hotel, and insurance companies. Finally, under cost structures, all maintenance, training, airport, and call center costs are trimmed to their lowest levels. All of these pieces working together make their fares almost impossible for traditional airlines to compete with. There's nothing superior about these airlines except their business models. They're reaching an entirely new segment of travelers out of reach for traditional airlines. Cutting out costs is pretty exciting, right? But wait! Just because it's successful for discount airlines doesn't mean it will work for your idea. Luckily, the business model canvas allows you to iterate many models and test them quickly. Let's get started with your own business idea. You can think of a business model like a story of how your enterprise will create, deliver, and capture value. And like a story, it can be one you've heard over and over before. For instance, you can start with what most people are fixated on, the value proposition. Travel for retirees. Then decide whom you can sell it to. Yep, boomers. Sketch in how you'll get it to them. Okay, a website. And how that will generate revenue. Sure, sales fees. You'll make it easy and automated. Next, you figure out what key resources you need to offer all that, like a reliable website and brand recognition. Carl's thinking his key activities will be marketing, website, and maintenance, and then partners will do the booking. And finally, where your costs will come from. Sales, marketing, platform development, all that will cost you. There you go, your first model. But don't expect a medal or a breakthrough. Predictable models can work, but rarely give you a competitive advantage, so don't fall in love with your first idea. To compete in a world where the best model wins, you'll need to think harder and explore alternatives. For example, prototype a model where you give away your value proposition for free. This will instantly change everything. You might not find this model realistic, but exploring it will force you to think hard about potential alternatives. As an entrepreneur, you're thinking of your model 24/7. Now you have a tool to structure your ideas as quick prototypes to consider with your team. Who knows, you might wind up with a disruptive model that changes an entire industry, like Skype with its freemium model, or Nespresso, which became a multi-billion-dollar business by locking customers into purchasing high-margin espresso capsules. In fact, understanding innovative or simply successful business models in other industries can be a great place to start getting to your breakthrough. There's no right or wrong way to do it, just 3 rules to start with. First, focus on the business model, not just your product, technology, or service. Second, don't fall in love with your first models. The best models are built on clever, unexpected elements, and that comes from creating many less obvious versions. Which leads to the third rule: iterate rapidly and test your models early, in the real world. How do you do that? Don't worry, guys. We're about to learn all about the real world beyond our canvas. Remember the chaos your idea faced before you made the canvas? Well, you've tamed some of it by mapping the elements that are mostly within your control. But the world out there is full of threats, constraints, and opportunities beyond your control. They create the environment in which you'll design and build your business model, and in which your business will fight for survival every day. Just because you can't control these factors doesn't mean you can't and shouldn't account for them in your model. Doing so will help prepare your model for threats, ready it for changing legal constraints, and prime it to jump on innovations. Let's see how mapping the environment will affect the Boomer travel agency model. On the right, you'll map market forces, everything related to the customer segments you've selected. Ask yourself, which other segments are there? Which ones are the most lucrative? Looks like Beth's discovered a segment of boomers with a range of disposable wealth. You could ask, which segments are growing, and what do they most want? And why might your customers resist? Okay, good. Boomers have trouble adapting to new technology. Now above your canvas, map key trends. Are new technologies about to undercut your value proposition or supercharge it? What regulations are coming up? How is society at large shifting? Right, Carl, rising medical costs could weigh heavily on your customers. Now to the left, map industry forces. Who are your main competitors? What advantages do their business models provide? Could they crush you? Your industry may already have a dominant competitor, but ask yourself, where are their weaknesses? Can you disrupt them? What might happen as suppliers and partners evolve or don't? Better to know now that the travel field is crowded and volatile, right, Carl? Finally, below your canvas, map macroeconomic forces. How is the global economy doing? Markets may be in a state of rampant uncertainty. How available is capital? Venture capitalists may be taking few risks. How well is the infrastructure developed in the market you are doing business in? Sure, many boomers are experiencing a decline in living standards. Now you've mapped your environment, full of threats, opportunities, and constraints. What do? Use the map, of course, to make your business model more responsive. Looking at industry forces on the left side of your canvas, ask, does your model have a competitive edge today? Tomorrow? Good thinking, Beth. That dominant competitor could be a threat. Looking at key trends on the top of your canvas, ask, is your model prepared for emerging trends? Okay, if rising medical costs encourage overseas treatment, that could be an opportunity for your travel agency. On the right for market forces, is your model in line with evolving customer needs? Sure, if your customers are resistant to the internet, you're right to rethink delivery through a website. And below for macroeconomic forces, how will your model adjust to macroeconomic shifts? Yes, Beth. Unfortunately, travel is becoming a luxury that a growing number of your customers can't afford. But don't be overwhelmed by these elements. Asking and answering these questions will help make your business model better suited to its environment and that much more likely to succeed. Now you're ready to start testing your model in the real world. All right, you've got your model, you made your best guess, it's time to fail. I know it's hard to hear, but even your most promising prototype is pretty certain to fail. Many of your hypotheses are bound to be wrong. Luckily, the canvas makes it easy to adapt, as long as your mistakes are cheap and you act quickly to fix them. See, the only judge of a business model is your future customer. What you've created so far are just hypotheses, guesses that need to be true for your business model to succeed. You have to test these hypotheses. Fail or succeed, learn, then adjust. This process is known as customer development and lean startup. Begin by explicitly stating the most important hypotheses underlying your business model. Okay, you believe that boomers crave custom travel experiences that are tailored to their needs, and that a great brand can overcome a dominant competitor's advantage. Great. Now get out into the world and see if you're right. You can conduct low-cost experiments to test your most important hypotheses. Talk to your distributors, potential partners, and industry experts. But most importantly, talk to your prospective customers. They're likely to have questions and concerns that never crossed your mind. The idea of overseas travel might be stressful for your customers. Money could be a concern. or there might just be a general lack of interest. Yes, learning that overseas travel is not attractive to many of your customers can feel like a major setback. But what you learn in the field can also lead you to unexpected opportunities, like the fact that retirement is cheaper overseas. And this might lead you to modify your original idea in favor of something new. As you gain confidence with your model, you should intensify testing. You'll succeed in some ways, but you'll fail in others because there will always be factors that you can't foresee from your office. If you adapt rapidly and cheaply, you can account for these factors. Solutions like quality assurance for high standards might be easier to implement through retirement village franchises. The more you test, the more you learn, the more your model matures. It's time to start thinking about business models in a revolutionary new way. The era of the fixed business plan is over. To compete today, you need an evolving business model. And if you document your evolution, you can play back your canvases like a flip book, a valuable documentation of your increasingly viable business model. Now your business model is not just a bunch of guesses. You've tested, adapted, and your business model is now likely to succeed. You're ready for the next step. It's time to pitch your model. You've done a lot of great work on your canvas, and the result is a business model that you're ready to pitch. Sharing your work with others for the first time can be intimidating. But remember, you know the model inside out, and I'll help you along the way. So go ahead, pitch it. Huh? Ooh, not like that. Showing the model all at once is cognitive murder. There's way too much info there to digest. You wrote it like a story, so tell it like a story, scene by scene. Use sticky notes to fill in the boxes one at a time as you explain them. Go on, try it.
We're going to match retiring baby boomers with overseas retirement communities run by franchisees. These are the two customer segments we're targeting.
Good. Now make it even more real for them.
10,000 boomers are retiring every day, like the Andersons, who can barely scrape by in Florida, but can live like kings in Brazil.
Okay, now continue the story with the next logical box.
For the retirees, our value proposition is affordable, high-quality retirement. We've taken the guesswork out of finding an overseas location that will be comfortable, affordable, and fun. And for our franchisees, we'll offer customer acquisition through thousands of high-quality leads.
How will we monetize this? By charging retirees a modest monthly fee and collecting franchising fees. They pay us for both leads and a trusted brand. We already have 5 letters of intent from potential franchisees, valued at over $1 million.
Now reinforce your case by explaining what you learned from your testing. Admitting your failures to investors and partners may seem unorthodox, but it shows your model is stronger for having been real-world tested and adapted.
We also learned from extensive research and some failed pilot offerings that many of our customers aren't just dissatisfied with their retirement options at home, they won't be able to keep up with medical costs either.
You're doing great. Now walk them through the rest of your model.
4 out of 5 customers we spoke to don't trust overseas options. By applying a local brand to
communications technologies, they'll never feel too far away. Services like Skype and FaceTime make connecting with family as easy as pressing a button.
Continue to grow. And though our revenue numbers may seem ambitious, they're based on over $1 million in pre-sales to customers.
By favoring human customer service over services provided through the internet, we become that much more accessible to boomers
So in
who may not
conclusion,
be tech-savvy.
we've tested, failed, adjusted, and we are now convinced the market potential of this model is enormous.
And while our idea is compelling, our business model is what makes us ready to compete on the largest stage.
And that is the story of how Beth and Carl took a great idea and created a great business model. But their story doesn't end here. As their business begins to grow, the canvas remains a valuable tool, growing and evolving with it. With some determination, hard work, and the right business model, this could easily be your story too.
So thoughts, questions? Did that give you a nice summary in 20 minutes as to what's evolved in regards to looking at businesses and going out there? And if you're saying that's a lot of work, you're very accurate with that. It's a lot of effort. It's not an easy fly-by approach. A lot of people come to me with ideas, and I love all the ideas, but let's put a little work behind it and find out if a lot of other people love the ideas or not. So this is quick and dirty, put on by Strategizer, and Strategizer were the folks that created the business model canvas, this particular brand, quite a while ago. And I guess 2010 is when it first came out. And a lot of people are using it all over the world right now. So we wanted to introduce this model to you tonight, and we'll go into quite a bit more detail, step by step, with some PowerPoint slides to give you guidance of how to go about thinking and approaching to verify whether your idea is a good idea or not. Any questions at all before we move ahead? So the next slide would be in the file here. Oh, up top. Oh. Yep. Now, I put a slide called 1.2 ideation on file for you. I'm not going to use that today, but if you're struggling with an idea, that's what you want to take a look at. There's an amazing little video there that you'll get great joy out of watching. It wasn't my intention to discuss the idea about ideation, but very, very important is to get that down pat before you really carry on with any business plan, of course. You've got to have it thought out. So tonight we'll look at the business model canvas, and there's a component of it called the value proposition. And Emmett Safe is a gentleman who put these slides on SlideShare, and I thought they were just superb quality. And he teaches a lot of folks in Qatar about the business model canvas and the value proposition. You can see how colorful they are. So we wanted to use them tonight to give you an indication as to the methodology that's explained here. So this is the first canvas, the value proposition canvas, the box and the circle, and the book that was written by Strategizer called The Value Proposition Design. It's unlike most books, very, very colorful, lots of expressions, lots of diagrams, very, very interesting approach to it all. Thank you, Penny. And you can get it at Chapters. And my last course last summer, I bought everybody the book and nobody gave it back to me. So there's some pretty good quality in what's going on. The canvas here we're going to get into, and we'll focus on the circle. So fundamentally, if you don't have a customer who sees your idea as important and is not willing to pay, you're out of the game. It's as simple as that. So if you don't have a customer who's willing to pay and sees a need for what you're offering to them, you do not have a game plan that's going to go forward. Most important. So what we look at is that round circle, that person in the middle. In the examples that we had with the low-cost airline people, it was for people who could not afford the regular airlines and found an opportunity. That was the customer segment. For the retirement idea, living across country, it was for baby boomers specifically that it could be focused on. So who is your customer? That's really, really important to determine. And you can have a multitude of customers. Christmas time, toys were sold, couple customers, kids and parents. Probably if you got into it too, there's mom and dad that have decisions in regards to buying and paying the money for some of the toys. Kids want it, they're the users, but the parents are the ones that have the power of the purchase. So often you'll want to appeal to parents and you'll want to appeal to the kids. You'll have two different marketing approaches to satisfy them. We're going to have an RBC Summit on March 8th at the Students' Union here. It's free of charge. It's our second one that we've had. The Royal Bank pays for it. We're bringing in Lisa Caruso, who is up in Calgary. She's a graduate from the University of Lethbridge. She's going to be talking about it. She went to Dragon's Den, and she developed the toddler monitor out of Calgary. So she was a young mom, and she found it quite frustrating that little ones could escape the bedroom, and she wouldn't know that they've left where they were having their nap. So she developed a monitor that hangs on the door, and when the little one opens the door, an alarm goes off, alerting the parent that they're on the run, if I could say. So very, very interesting approach, but found a problem, found a need, and found a customer segment, which would be parents with the young ones, and probably some grandparents thrown into there too, looking at the same services, the parenting services, that would use a monitor like that. So there's a classic example of something that fit, but it's not for everybody. So when you come and say, I have an idea and everybody wants it, our spidey senses go up. Everybody doesn't want it. There's segments in the marketplace. So who are they that you will impact? So the idea here is value proposition. You describe the benefits, not the features, the benefits the customers can expect from your product and service. So very, very important. And in the same respect, it's not that easy. So some of these slides are looking sort of interesting. That's okay. So maybe I'll go with this one right now. So the number one startup mistakes for building something that nobody wants is you're building something nobody wants, right? And these are the top 10 startup mistakes that are listing. You're hiring poorly, you hire the wrong people. We recently experienced a gentleman, and he had taken some folks on at the very beginning, but as he grew his business, they didn't have the competency levels to be able to grow with him. And it caused some great grief for him. In another case, we recently experienced two partners. They started to argue with each other, and that was the end of the business. The people factor is fundamental. You've got to look for the right people or be able to get the right people as you evolve your business. Fundamentally important. So, and then lack of focus. You could be a plumber and say, I'll do that electrical work, I'll do that sheet metal work, I'll be all over the map. Well, you're not focused, you don't get a consistent pattern within your business, and so things can fall apart. So an interesting slide that shows some of the challenges that you've got. So the big challenge is often you'll waste time and resources going around. You'll have very unproductive meetings and uncommon language. So somebody's thinking one angle, somebody's thinking another angle. The course that I just was teaching was family enterprise. And there was a gentleman who's in his 70s, he's been running this shop, and he cracks the whip. And so his sons have left the business. And now the grandchildren are in the business, and they're saying, we don't like the fact that he screams at us all the time. Different attitudes, different people, different styles. So our younger generation, of which many of you are here, are looking for a different twist on how organizations should be functioning. And when you have these particular problems, you get product failure. So you need a better approach for creating the value for customers and lowering your risk. And the value proposition is what we'll show you to give you an idea of a better understanding of what customers need. So this looks a bit convoluted, but it all has a methodology to it, and you'll understand it more once we get into some of the detail. So here's the canvas, and it's a component of the business model canvas. So here's your business model canvas, and here's the two pieces: that present, that prize, that product, that service that you're providing, and then the customer segments. And you could have several customer segments, not just one. And it's important that you identify because they'll have different needs. So the value map, so the gift that you're giving people, need to fit the customer profile. So the set of value proposition benefits that you're giving someone that you design needs to match the set of characteristics that people are looking for in the customer profile that you're going after. Very, very important. So I had a project where some students were putting together some wheat bags, and they thought that university students in kinesiology would want to buy these wheat bags, heat them up or cool them off, put them around their neck. And when they interviewed some of these folks, they said, we stretch before and after. And by stretching before and after, we don't need the wheat bags. Or if we do need a hot or cold pad, we're going to get these commercial units, we're going to crack them, and we're going to put them on the spot that needs it. We're not going to mess around with this heavy wheat bag and put in a mic. And then they said, well, maybe older people do it. So they went to some care homes. I was going to say nursing homes, but care homes. And they talked to the people there and said, what do you think if we produce these wheat bags? And they said, no, we're not going to use those, because if one of our aides goes and puts it in a microwave oven and overheats it and gives it to one of our clients and they burn their skin, we'll have a real problem on our hands. So just by going out and asking people, they learned a lot. And they lost, they failed quickly, but at a very cheap price. At Tech Connect, we'll have some people who have designed a prototype that will be $100,000, $200,000 investments, and they've never bothered to ask anybody if that investment, if that prototype is something that they want. They will not. So you see on the Dragon's Den when Kevin O'Leary's talking about, stop the nonsense. How much money have you put into it? And then they say, well, we had to get a loan out on our children and our house and everything to pay for it. They say, that's insanity. You need to verify and check things when you haven't spent money. And that's what we're attempting to do here. Think it out, play with it a little bit, test it. It's so cheap at this point in time. The minute you start to buy components to it, it gets very expensive. But some people insist, I got to build this perfect mousetrap. Had one guy had put a ton of money into a project and he had not tested it, and he was coming to us to look for a lot more money to build a bigger one, because that bigger mousetrap, when people will see it, it'll be the winner. No, there's a lot easier ways to be able to get a minimum viable product out there that you can check with people than having to physically build that product in many cases. So be cautious of how much money you're dumping into your idea before you've gone out and talked to people. So here's the two components of it. We call it customer profile and we call it the value map. And we'll take a look at the customer profile first, and then we'll see how we're doing for a break. So two ways of being able to introduce something to customers. It could be something that's product-inspired innovation. So Apple and the whole Apple world definitely has inspired us. We're all weighed down by smartphones now. Absolutely amazing. Or could be customer-inspired innovation. So Uber. So the fine folks in Calgary who created Uber, take a look at them. They were frustrated with the taxi cab industry, and they said, this has got to be a different model out there. And they created a different model to be able to satisfy the needs of people. So what is yours? Are you a customer and you're frustrated by something and you're inspired to do it differently? Or is there a product out there that you've always said, wow, if there was something like that, I would buy it. And somebody's gone out and been wise enough to create it. That's the idea. So here's some exercises here, methodologies is we say, get a map, and you can download them here, and grab some stickies, and then start writing stickies, just like you saw on this particular video. You'll be able to see where I'm coming from in a minute here. So very, very simple. It's not paragraphs, it's a few words just to test things. If you took a look at those models, they never had a lot of words. It was short, quick ideas. So as I've mentioned before, at the top of the canvas here, it says customer segment. So who is it that you're going to be serving, or who do you think you're going to be serving? And it may very well adjust once you go out and start asking people. So they've done a nice pie here to give an indication who in there is yours. And part of the problem here is when I see folks come from Calgary to Lethbridge, they often think that Lethbridge is a small version of Calgary. Dr. Bill Cade, who was our university president, has always said Lethbridge is a big Raymond, not a little Calgary. So there's a rural context to it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But to think because it goes so well in Calgary, it might go well in Lethbridge, no, you want to test that market and find out if that's true, okay? So keep attuned to it. I did quite a bit of work in Lethbridge area. I at one time looked in Medicine Hat to take on a business there. I did the research and said, we're going to fail in Medicine Hat. There was a high-end men's fashion store in town here that went to Medicine Hat for a number of years and pulled out of Medicine Hat. It just wasn't the market for what they were trying to serve those people. So same with, I've noticed in the Crow's Nest Pass area, Pincher Creek is different than Blairmore and Fort Macleod. And they're only 30 minutes apart from each other, but it's absolutely amazing. And then you want to look at what's developing in those regions. So if you're looking for people that are appealing to a growth market, take a look at the stats in those areas to find out, are they growing or aren't they growing? How much has Fort Macleod grown in the last 100 years? Where's the Crow's Nest Pass and what's the dependency in the Crow's Nest Pass? And what's the future of the Crow's Nest Pass with tech and all that mining that's going on there? Is it a growth opportunity or not? Find out the regions that you're going into and see the opportunity. I've done some work for the senior centers in town here, and I've noticed that we have one of the two largest senior centers in all of Alberta, which I thought was absolutely fascinating and very, very cheap to belong to too, I'm finding out. So customer segment, it's the group of people or organizations who share similar characteristics that you aim to reach and create value for. So I'll give an example. I was at my daughter's house today, and a HVAC company called AirTech came over to her house. She bought a house that's 9 years old, and the vent above the stove had been put in incorrectly. And so she was complaining about grease coming through her house rather than going out the exhaust. And the people who had installed that had installed it backwards. So AirTech comes in, they put booties on their feet to protect the floors that they're walking through the house on. They greeted, they came on the time they said they were gonna come, and they were friendly. They introduced their names. They said, here's what we're planning on doing, here's what we're looking at. They were polite. I couldn't believe it. I said, first class service, right? I do have a bias towards AirTech because I know a few people that are there, but they maintained what they said they were going to do. And they fixed it, and then they found some other things and fixed it at the same time. It wasn't a shoddy job. And I was just totally impressed. And my daughter there, she's a millennial that is working day and night. Her context of knowing about things like that, no, she's got to rely on somebody. So being able to provide trusted service like that to people is fundamental. Same with cars, my goodness. So very, very interesting. So find out the customer segment. So I was the one there, and I'll probably pay the bill, and they're the users of the kitchen, and maybe someday I'll get a meal out of it. We'll find out. So market segment, you can find out demographic, geographic, behavioral, psychographic. Take a look and find out who you're focused on. So there's more to it in your business. So if you're opening up a plumbing shop or a paint shop, you've got to focus on who's actually going to be using your services. And when I was in that industry, I always matched guys who were selling our product, same age to the people who were buying the product. So you don't want an old person selling to a 30-year-old. They don't mix. It doesn't work. It didn't 20 years ago and 30 years ago, and it certainly doesn't today. You've got to find those mixes. So where are you in the picture? Who will you be selling to? Who will you need to be? Or who will you need to hire to help move your product in the future? Things to consider. So in this particular example, customer segment, the idea is taxi passenger and a man, Jordan, and they're thinking of an app to make things easier for the folks. So you've got this customer segment, and he's there in the suit, waving down or attempting to wave down the traditional yellow cab appearance. And we take a look at it now in relationship to who he is and what he's wanting. And we take a look at, we call them customer jobs. Sounds weird, but bottom line is, what are you trying to get done? Just like my daughter with her vent, she's trying to get rid of the grease buildup problem that she's got in her house. So the vent was not working right, so got that fixed. So the problem was the grease, not anything to do with AirTech or the people that were there. That was what she needed done, and she needed help on that. So this guy here, he needs a taxi, and what are the typical things that he has to end up doing? Calling the taxi, finding a taxi, giving directions, and paying for them. Those are the tasks that he undertakes when he's getting a taxi, okay? And so what we have is two faces there. One's sad, a pain, and one's happy. And so what we ask them is say, what annoys the customer before, during, and after getting a job done? Well, when I described AirTech, nothing annoyed me about them. They were on time, they were clean, they were organized, they knew what they were doing, they weren't guessing. I was totally impressed by that. And so I'll pay for it. So in this particular case, the pains for him is, or anyone for that matter, wait a long time, you got an unsafe driver, you compete with other customers trying to get into the door after you flag them down, and then at the end, you beautifully get overcharged for the service. So there's the pains that often people will feel. So when you're thinking of your idea, and you're saying you're solving a problem, what is it that they're needing done, and what are the pains that they currently have? And if you know that, that really puts a competitive edge for you. And then when it comes to the gains, they would love something that's, you got professional drivers, an easy payment system, a fair price, and you arrive on time, because time is everything to the businessman traveling around, right? So that's the concept that's broken down in regards to this value proposition, and it's speaking about the particular customer segment. So then the next step is you rank them. You find out what's essential and what are nice to haves with your customers. Because you could be misled if you go and pick something that was a nice to have and you invest a lot of energy into it, but it really wasn't essential for them. So by talking to them, you find out what's most important and what's least important of these, and you go and rate them. And you'll find out that many of these things are incorrect, and you'll correct them by talking to customers. So you rank them and understand what customer priority is, because if you get that wrong, you'll invest in what they don't need, and it was just nice to have for them, and they won't buy your product. So it's really, really important to be on track there. So these guys rank them, and you can see they're pretty neat and organized with their little stickies, and they have a good idea of what they're doing. So what was important to him was arrive on time and a fair price, the guy or lady who's driving it, professional, and an easy payment system. So on the rank side, again, wait a long time. So often what you see is arrive on time and wait a long time are just the opposite of each other. And then overcharge by taxi versus a fair price. Compete with other customers. In this case, he wants a professional driver in it and an unsafe driver. So it's not a perfect match, and it should not be. You'll find different pains versus gains, but this would be his dream if he could have the perfect taxi. So what we end up doing is summary on this side is we select a customer segment, we identify the customer jobs that need to be done, we then identify the customer pains, we identify the customer gains, and then we prioritize and we rank them accordingly, okay? Any questions on that? Anything at all?
Is this all in that value proposition book you're doing?
Yes, yes. But this slide is enough for you to get started and work on it. Very much so, okay? And I'll give this to a lot of students and people at Tech Connect and Community Futures, and this is all we work off of. Fundamentally understanding what the pains of the customer are and what the gains are. Because of course, what you're now going to offer is a product and service that covers those off. That's the value differentiator for you. Okay.
So I'm guessing like ground truthing, ground truthing what you're assuming or what you see as the pains and gains is part of your test driving process. It's pretty hard to do research in front of that, I suppose.
It's pretty hard to do.
To do research on the front end?
Yes.
It pretty much has to just be test driven.
That's correct. So bottom line is it's pretty hard to be able to put things together without testing it on the ground with people. Is that correct? And so that's what we're fundamentally driving. So imagine you take the role of the customer on and you put a GoPro on your head and you observe what's going on. Just like I did with this AirTech example, I in essence had a GoPro on my head and I said, let's check these guys out. Let's see if they're as good as I think they are, right? So I would give them a 5-star rating. And smartly enough, they have a rating system, and they send it to you shortly thereafter. And guess what I gave them? 5-star rating. Well, they were first of mind. And that's how they then evaluate their employees. They're connected. So it's objective information. How you treated that customer is what counts in our business. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant on their part. So same with yourselves. Put yourselves in shoes. So sometimes we have university students that see everything from a university perspective. They haven't gotten out there or experienced the world and know what that side is. And not everybody. We've got a lot of mature students there. But imagine putting your shoes in the world of a senior citizen. And I've had my parents come and go, and I've been through that, observing and being their advocate for, well, 15-year period, I guess it was. And simple things like my mother's hands were sort of messed up and gnarly, of course. And so she's trying to open up a ketchup bag at a table, and it's absurd, right? But the people that are serving don't want to have real ketchup bottles and mustard bottles because you've got to take care of those. You've got to clean them. You've got to store them. So the simpler solution is these quick disposable, but that's really not serving the customer. And so she's very frustrated and embarrassed because she can't open it up, and she's sitting at a table with a number of women. Those kinds of things have an impact. So that's why you want to be able to take a look and see, how are things being done now? Can we do it better? So in the taxi cab example, we know about Uber. Somebody's found out a different opportunity, a different attempt. They put something online. You can use that app. It's absolutely amazing. So, and I love it because it's cheap enough that when my kids are out at nighttime, they know to get an Uber and come home. Rather than wait for a taxi, wonder which one it is. They've got the picture, everything, and they know where it's coming from. It's perfect. It's a good tool. Now, maybe the taxis are doing that now in Calgary and that, but what a wonderful solution for us, right? Airbnb, same kind of idea. And you have to remember that both Uber and Airbnb came in times around 2008 when the market was down. People were looking for cheaper ways of staying and cheaper ways of transportation. So they had that advantage at the time when there was a low market and they got into that business. Now, Airbnb, none of these happened overnight. There was some thought process that went into it. I just interviewed some people the other day, and they have finally struck gold with their 4th business over 5 years. The first 4 were really bad, and the spouses told me about that. Okay? They said, "Are you kidding? And we had little ones at home, and our husbands were doing this? We could have really been upset," right? So that's the kind of idea. Other questions? So you got to know what those customers think. If you're not their age, if you're not who they are, then you've got to put yourself in place. Yes? Mackenzie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a quick question about when you actually go and meet your customer segment, how would you suggest opening up, asking them about getting their ideas and opinions?
So the question was, you go and meet the customer segment, how do you open up and ask them? Okay, there is a book online that's free of charge, a little booklet called Talking to Humans. And it takes you through some very basic steps. And you can go online and Google Talking to Humans, and you'll get the analysis of it. But it takes you through a step of what's most important is you never try to sell what your idea is. You identify what their problem is and confirm whether what your assumptions were, your guesses, are correct or not. And some people are so consumed with their idea that it's going to be so wonderful and so successful, they tune out and don't listen, and they just can't help but share their idea immediately, and people nod off, or people are very kind to you, but they'll never buy your product. Because what you want to be able to do is, after you've been able to talk to them, they show enough interest in it that they're willing to give you their email address for further contact, right? So that you can follow up with them as you're developing your product. Very, very important to connect with them in the right way. So use this much more than this, and just start off on some. And I'd be glad to send you some vids that give you an idea as to how to approach people. There's a very good one out there that has Justin Wilcox featured, Justin Wilcox on YouTube. And he has a 30-minute video that's actually interviewing a person online who is got a weight problem. So very sensitive topic. And he's absolutely masterful on how he deals with and works with that individual and asks the questions. But Talking to Humans is a beautiful source. It'll give you the questions and the format. And the idea is you build your assumptions based on this, and then you go out and talk to them. Other questions? So the business model canvas and the value proposition. So the first part of it. And I think, how are we doing for time?
You're well, you're good. You've got another 20, 25 minutes, please.
Awesome. Isn't penny efficient? Okay. So I broke it down to 2 pieces so that you would look at this and then we'd look at the other side. So I'm going to call up the other side now and take a look at it for us. Oops. My apologies. Here we are. Okay. So again, we'll carry on here and take a look at what we've got to say here. And let's see if we can't try blowing this up. and getting better. Okay, so again, the canvas. Again, they're talking about benefits. So lots of people talk about features. So, you know, when you've got a car, you're looking for different features in it and that, but what's the benefit of the car? So a Tesla would be a classic example that many, many people use. Folks who want an environmentally conscious vehicle, they'll be drawn to it. And they've got proof that it's typically males that are earning $100,000 plus in US dollars that have a desire to have a fast car, something unique, something novel in the process, versus somebody who's $30,000 a year. So they've priced it in that category to satisfy that particular market segment. So let's take a look and see what we've got here. So it's, here we go, same problem, eh? So, well, I've got the same slide. Okay, so this was customer profile. Yep. And then the value map. So what they've got is grab the customer profile that you just completed, download the value map, get some stickies, and let's do the other side, what your product is or service is that you're going to be offering people. So their idea is a taxi smartphone app that I'd mentioned at the beginning. So that's what they're drawing on. So some of the, you see the pain relievers, so this is a pill, concept of a pill. Pain relievers that they're looking for is, they're looking for instant bookings, assigned drivers, not having to deal with cash with folks, and they're looking for a cost system that ensures a fair pricing for whomever is going to be taking a cab or using this particular system. So they match it and they take a look and they look at what would be gain creators. So what would be over and above what currently exists in the marketplace. And right now they said, wow, it'd be great if we could save time with our app. We'd have professional drivers. We'd have a visual map so people could see where it was coming, where you're going, and we'd have a rating system so we could rate those drivers. So very, very similar to what you heard with the Uber. So how does it create customer gains? So over and above, so value. So often we'll deal with a number of folks that will come to us and they'll say, I'm a plumber and I want to open up my own shop. What will make that plumber different than all the other plumbers that are around? And frequently you'll go and be serviced by the plumber and you'll say, well, he was outstanding or not, he really cared or didn't care. You've got to be a value differentiator in a market that's got a lot of plumbers, or a market that's got a lot of electricians. Or let's say you're opening up a retail store, and let's say you're going to get into baby clothing retail store. There's one that just opened up recently. She had a very, very good idea, very, very good business plan, knew what she wanted to do, checked out the market very, very well, and I hope she's doing great. You want to make sure you're not saturating the market or that there's enough capacity in the market for your idea to take place. So you want to somehow have value over and above what your competitors have. So same kind of idea. You end up ranking how essential is it versus a nice to have in those particular areas. And then you'll take a look, and they ranked it here, and take a look and said saving time's probably the most important. Professional driver, rating system, and a visual map. And then when it comes to pain relievers, instant booking, assigned drivers, cost systems, and no cash. See the quick words, the quick ideas behind them, there's a lot, but that's what we're looking for in regards to ranking them. And now we put the two of them together and we'll compare. So describe explicitly how your product service creates value and the one-page map of value creation. Let's take a look. So you see now how they've gone and just said, okay, these match out. So our gain creators match out the gains that people are looking for or don't perfectly match. So they've got check marks to identify where they are or where the match isn't. So to bring the value proposition map together and the customer profile together and go through each one by one, and check to see whether they fit the customer's job. So that's that fit that we're talking about. And put a check mark in each one. So that's pretty cool stuff. So this is what they've done. Save time, covers the arrive on time at the top. Professional drivers covers the concept of having professional drivers in the gain section. They don't have a visual map in it. They don't have an easy payment system, and they don't have a fair price in the structure that they've got there. And they have to decide, is that enough to satisfy what the people will want? Because they can develop those tools as they go along. Often people think you have to have a fully developed product or fully developed software base before you move along. And what we encourage you to do is get out and start it, because it'll be so new to people. And then you can build on it as you get success and some cash generated into your company. So I don't know if any of you folks have the tile. I think I do here. So this concept of the tile that I can track to find out where I lose these keys, it'll send a signal to my phone as to where it was last seen. And then, of course, I can get it to start to ring. And they start off with a very, very basic one, and they've been improving them every year. And the beautiful part was the battery wears out about every year, so I was having to replace them all the time. So now they've got more sound, better distance, and I'm so much happier. And they're more ruggerized type of unit. So they started off with something basic, got some money coming into their system, kept on improving their designs on the tile, and now they're taking off, and they've got all kinds of new ideas that are coming through too. So I'm quite impressed with this. And then, of course, on the beautiful part is, if I lose my phone, I can hit this 2 times, and it'll start ringing my phone. And I'll be able to say, oh, that's where it's at, right? So for me, forgetting things, I don't want to lose these university keys and Tech Connect keys. I'll be in big trouble. So I'm trying to track them with the tile. I think it's a very, very cool idea. So it's made my life simpler. And I can safely say it's made my wife's life simpler too, because she has school keys in the process. So that's the kind of idea that we're looking for. What will add value? Don't start with a full-blown version that has to all be complete. Just start to play and put something together, and it will grow. And you'll be able to grow it with your customers. You'll be able to find out what their needs are as you're talking to them and integrating their feedback into what you're doing all the time. That's what we're looking for. Questions on this side of it?
Pretty quiet.
Crickets.
No cash, address the easy payment.
So at this particular one,
Repeat his question, sorry.
Sorry, you said.
Doesn't the no cash address the easy payment?
Doesn't the no cash address the easy payment? And what they were talking about is they want easy payment, but his system right now is not, oh, I see what you're saying. There's connected because of the gain and the pain. Really, what I think the methodology was that they were looking for here is how much can we achieve through that gain through development. And they did suggest that a pain reliever would be no cash, but they've chosen at this time not to work on it because it's a nice to have, not a high priority in their perspective on things. They just can't invest and put everything together at this point in time. But it can evolve over time, just like the tile example that I gave you. Okay? So best fit. So test your customer assumptions and find out what's wrong and what's right. So of course here, you got to go out and talk to people. Take a look at talking to humans and be able to go out and talk. And we do offer and we will help you in regards to when you put your questions together and want to go out there, we would be more than happy to review it so that you're not wasting your time, or we may have some tips that would give you better guidance as well. Okay. Penny.
Question from the video, but you'll have to repeat it. Is the goal to always match gain and pains or get close?
Well, you are trying to, is the goal to always match pains and gains or close? We're looking for a match. We want to make sure we focus on the high priority ones so that we capture the interest of the customer as soon as possible, as long as those high priority ones are affordable. So you've got to have some common sense to what resources and what time frame you're going to put into it. So that's the game plan, is to do that matching, yes. So you adjust and redesign. It's very interesting how these slides aren't coming out correctly. And then you've got a number of iterations that you'll do. So it won't be perfect the first time. You'll do many, many. And I think as you saw in the videos, they were working on many, many sheets and trying some different opportunities until they came right. And then find the best fit that'll make your customer happy. Most important. So in this particular example, they say, can you summarize what you're trying to do for a value proposition in this statement here? So the product and service they're offering, our taxi smartphone app, helps who's the customer segment? Taxi passengers who want to, the job to be done, book a taxi by minimizing, so reducing, avoiding, so minimizing the pain of waiting time for a taxi, and enjoying, so increasing, enabling affordable prices, so the gain in it, unlike typical taxi services by phone. So they have a different perspective on it. So the last thing you want to do is be able to say, unlike our competitor so-and-so. Don't do that. Just generalize the industry when you're putting that together. So we're looking for a quick, easy statement out of what you've got to tell us what it is. Just before the class that I had, there was a young gentleman that has a really neat idea, but it took him 15 minutes to explain it to me. You've only got precious amount of time. People are only going to listen for so long. How can you capture it in very, very brief statements? So a statement like this really will, when you present your business plan, this is what you're wanting to do, people get it right off the bat. Very, very simple. Questions?
Remember, bring your example.
Bring your example.
That was one of the things I told them as their email.
Oh, people were supposed to bring example? Okay, let's try some out.
Throw your business at him and he'll throw something for it back.
And it'll be good stuff. Colton. Come on. Colton's been to this many, many times. Now he's got to contribute.
I know we have a hair salon. I know we have physiotherapy. I know we
Oh,
have,
wow.
Okay, so if you want to repeat.
So some examples are hair salons. So again, I don't have much hair, so I'm not your customer. But my wife is. And I would be interested in knowing, where are you trying to focus? Are you going to focus to everybody who needs to get their hair done? She ends up, because she's a little older, getting coloring a little more frequently than younger people do. And so that whole process. What really impresses her is she'll come home, and I think it's tonight she's getting it done. And she'll typically come back to me and she'll say, I like the color, I don't like the cut. I like the color, I don't like the cut. But go back again and pay $100+ for the experience. I'm saying, why do you do this? So it's like she seems, and then really, really enjoy that person, and then it sort of wanes and they move on. And I don't know if that's the norm or not, if that's what happens. Penny's telling me that's what happens.
You never get the same cut twice, but you should repeat the...
Oh, you never get the same cut
Even by
twice.
the same person.
Even by the same person. But you sure pay for it, right? So what's going to make your hair salon different than all the ones that are out there right now? Maybe you've worked in many of them. Maybe you've seen how they treat customers. Maybe you've got some new style ideas. Maybe the atmosphere and ambience that you're offering. Maybe the location. I noticed there's another dental operation on the west side here in the crossings. Oh, interesting. What research did they do to determine that you need another dental office on the west side? 39,000 people here. And at one time, you had no banks for many, many years on the west side simply because everybody worked somewhere else and not on the west side and did their banking over there. So the banks didn't come until more families were established here and there was a need for those local banks to come to. So where will the location be for the hair salon? Will it be in a small town? Will it be here? Will it be on the west side? And what can you afford? West side rental rates are very, very high in the city of Lethbridge right now. They're a going concern, so you're going to pay dearly for it. So in your cost structure of putting it together, what volumes do you have to do? I noticed that there was a wine shop on the west side and it's no longer open. So it could very well have been the rates, the lease rates that they were tied into that made it exorbitant. I don't know what the customer service was, never went into the store. I just see a closed sign on it a couple months ago. So understand what that environment is that you're moving into in the hair salon. Now when it comes, was it physiotherapy?
Yes, or bakery. I've got a bakery.
Oh, bakery. Interesting.
Might be more.
So I just walked by a bakery that has closed up in the last 2 months down on the south side. I was really surprised to see it had closed up, and I was wondering, why has it closed up? Is it location? Is it relationship? Is it the people that were working there and they had personal problems, or it was hard work and being in a bakery is a lot of hours? What could it have possibly been that closed that shop down? Was there competitors that came in? So we have, what's the bakery on the south side that's the big organization? Cobb's, right? Cobb's is selling a lot of bread. Would it have impacted the competitors in baking here? So you've got to look at what's that environment? How many competitors are out there? How big out there? How controlling are there? You don't want to go in with the lowest price. When you're a startup, don't go in and you'll undercut, because somebody else will be there to undercut as well. You need to go in to be offering value over and above what currently exists. And I'll talk about people who clean houses. I've heard rates in Lethbridge anywhere from $50 to $20 an hour. And I bet if I really looked at the folks that are doing the 50, I would find that there are a number of hardworking individuals at 20 bucks an hour doing the same thing. Those $20 an hour people don't believe in the value that they're offering, or they haven't checked out what the rates are out there. And think about it, if you put 2,000 hours in and you could have been charging $10 an hour more, that's $20,000 income that you are losing because you haven't checked the market, or you don't believe in the value that you're delivering to the customer. Why not ask the customer? Why not find out what other people are paying and then set the rate that you can live with? Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
For pricing, is it a good idea to go and ask customers what would you be willing to pay for it, or give them a range maybe that they would do?
What I would first do is I would definitely go out and find out what the prices are that are out there. I would not ask them, what would you be willing to pay for? If you get to that stage of sharing your project with them, what would this be worth to you? What value is it? And you would definitely be hitting on the benefits and the cost savings and time frame like that. We have one gentleman who was in the Chinook Entrepreneurial Challenge last year, KJ Concepts, Kenny Joss, and he has purchased a digital scanning equipment that you can use on construction sites. So it shoots beams and measures the objects. So then he could take that data and dump it into his drafting software, AutoCAD, and work with it. Now, the traditional way is using a tape measure out on job sites. So he's introducing something totally new to this marketplace. So when I asked him what would be the price point for something like that, he said, well, I'm going to show them that I'm going to save them a lot of time, that it will be very accurate, the quality will be there, that they won't have to do rework on fabrication of equipment that they're installing because it will be measured correctly the first time. He says, there's no way I'm going to just charge them what the price for the actual process would be. I'm going to charge them a premium because I am making their life much easier. Makes total sense. Total sense. So again, it really depends on the situation as to the pricing of it. But I would never say, would you pay between $5 and $10 for this? I would always be open and say, what do you think this would be worth to you? And you'll find that there are different customer segments, that one price will be different than another price. So there will be some out there that would pay a lot more. Are you looking for a niche, or are you looking for mass market? So I'll give you an example of a fitness place in town here. He specializes in niches to business people. That's all he does. So there are a lot of fitness places in town. Some make money, some don't. Some work awfully hard to make their money. He's found a niche, and he focuses on these business people. And what are the needs of the business people? And in their bottom line is they want one-on-one coaching when they need it. And many of them are traveling. So they're not showing up all the time because they're traveling all over the place. So he needs to be flexible, but he's flexible within a reasonable period of time. And he doesn't charge them on a per occurrence. He charges them a monthly rate. And he will work hard to make it up for people. But often their busy schedules prevent them from getting all the full services that were offered for that particular month. Very, very successful. He has struck relationships with his customers that's very, very strong. Strong relationships with customers. And, you know, they wouldn't leave him because the relationship is like a brother or that kind of involvement. So think about other ways than just price on things. What else can you do? We had a pretty famous restaurant here called Coco Pazzo's. And when Siriano and Rose families owned it, man, you went there and you expected something. Well, then they sold the restaurant, and it was open for about 6 months after that. But it was interesting because it was a perfect combination. They had a wonderful menu, the aromas, the environment they had created over years and years and years. But something changed when the new owners came in. And I can speculate, but I won't bother. But something changed, and the whole idea of something that was around for 30 years collapsed in 6 months. So what was that relationship that people brought? Okay. Now, bakery. There's a bakery that opened up as part of the Chinook Entrepreneurial Challenge here last year in Fort Macleod. And they're wonderful people out there. And they're selling artisan style sourdough. And so they went to San Francisco and learned the art of doing sourdough bread. So they know what they're doing. Plus, they went to Chicago and learned the art in desserts. And I can tell you they know what they're doing there too. So very, very interesting. They wanted to be in that business, but they took the time to get the skill sets in place in order to deliver the product. And now they're working like heck because that bakery is in demand and it's long, crazy hours to run a bakery. But they're loving what they're doing. And I spoke to them just before Christmas. We went out there on a Saturday morning. You don't want to go before 11 o'clock because the fresh bread's coming out, but there's nothing wrong with the yesterday's bread either. And they said, things are going incredibly well. We're going to be able to make these investments next spring. And they had put a business plan together, and they're following their plan. And they know how to meet the customers, and they've got strong interest here. Their product is being wholesaled more. So they start off with retail and realize the potential for wholesaling, and they sell their bread over at Mocha Cabana in Lethbridge here. And Angel Harper loves them to death, the owner of Mocha Cabana. So it gets intertwined with relationships and takes you on journeys that you can't possibly expect when you're first doing a business plan. But that relationship builds. Okay, break time. Okay, so you had a break. Any questions before we get going again? I talked to a few folks here. Anything at all?
He loves questions.
You know, all you have to do is look around the environment. What ticks you off? What do you see as glowing environment? So, you know, I talked about trades a little bit. In Lethbridge, who's the brand electrician? Who's the brand plumber? Who's the brand painter? I see a lot of trades guys who are running businesses. Well, where's the brand identity that exists out there? That they're just naturally the go-to people, right? When I go to Global News and watch Calgary, my goodness, Pete the plumber. Everything's Pete the plumber, and he's a character. Unbelievable. You'll either like his style or you won't like his style. But that first name recall when your water tank is leaking or you've got sinks problems, Pete the plumber is going to come to your mind. I noticed that there's a new auto body that opened up in Inglewood, I believe it was, on the news, Global Today. And the owner started up and he says, yes, he says, we're a new business in this area that hasn't had a lot of businesses lately. And he said, our approach is we're going to treat every day as if it's our grand opening. What a wonderful thing to say. To be able to go there and show the enthusiasm and care for a customer every day as if it's the first grand opening day you've had, that's a win situation. People will appreciate it because it really is about relationships. You know, I took a vehicle into a service department the other day, and they said to me, oh, by the way, you're going to need a gasket replaced on the engine, and we have to drop the engine in order to replace it. And the bill, here's the quote, $3,200, right? I wasn't very happy, and I said, but I have an extended warranty. Oh no, we checked into it, and your warranty expired. No, I went home, I pulled my document, I have another year covered on it, so I was polite, I called them back and said, hey, I'm sorry, but I think you were looking at the wrong file. There's coverage there. So, you know, those kinds of things impact a person because $3,200 is a lot of money, and the fact the gasket's $114 and they have to drop the engine out of the vehicle to replace it, sorry, that blows me away as a consumer. And I wish they had phrased it a little differently and not told me that detail. So think about when you're walking around, what bothers you? I went to Sleep Country on Saturday. Evan, the sales guy at Sleep Country, absolutely fantastic. And I'm telling 100 people that right now. This guy knew he wasn't giving me a salesy job. He often would start off with, are you having difficulties with this? i.e., he's identifying the problems that people have in the sleep. And he's providing, try this to see if this is a solution that works for you. Very, very good at what he was doing. So he wasn't trying to sell me anything. He was solving my sleep problems. And I thought, isn't this cool? So I'm going to be so happy at 8 o'clock tomorrow when I get the phone call for the delivery of the new bed. I mean, I'm pumped. This is good stuff. And not only was it a bed, it was pillows. It was sheets. It was duvet. Thank goodness I'm still keeping the same bed frame. But think about the upselling, the unification. And my wife and I debated about bamboo versus 400 thread, whatever it's called, right? And I think, isn't this interesting? So of course we settled it by buying one sheet sets of bamboo and the other of whatever the 400 thread count is. And I didn't get the color I wanted. But having said that, I was glad to pay, and it wasn't cheap either. But I thought it was on sale, and it was on sale. Let's go. And he just provided superb service. And I said, I'm always here for you. Great. So, you know, stop and think about how strong relationships you've got out there these days. And it's interesting. Some do it wonderful. Some don't do it so wonderful. And you wonder why their businesses aren't as successful. What's that customer service? So eat, sleeping, and breathing through your customer's eyes is fundamentally the right approach for you to do. Just ask questions. We had a lady in one of our Tech Connect sessions, and she was a aesthetics individual, and she had a couple hundred clients, and she worked out of her house, and she was absolutely a wonderful individual. And she had a whole new idea of what she wanted to be able to help people with, and it was people buy a lot of cosmetic products, and they have drawers full. I can attest to that. And what she wants to do is be able to help you make better buying decisions on your cosmetic products. That's beautiful. Save a ton of money for people that are into that. That'd be fantastic. But she had not asked the 200 people that she sees on a regular basis through her aesthetics business. So it was on Halloween that she chose to finally start asking people. Her son had a Halloween party, and when the parents were coming in and the women were coming to pick the kids up, she started to ask them, hey, have you ever considered any of this? Do you have a problem in this particular area? And she was blown away at how many people expressed frustration over the drawers of cosmetics they have. It gave her such a sense of confidence. And then she started asking the 200 people that came in. And she says, I've struck gold in this particular area. So simple idea like that, just going and asking people is what's fundamental to the success. You just go out and step up. Now, I have had a number of international students last semester. I mentioned one guy came from Hong Kong. English was pretty good, but he was in Lethbridge, Alberta. And he says, I've got to go out and ask people questions, Bruce. And I said, yes, you bet. I'll help you with all the questions. And we talked about some questions during the break here as to how to word them. And his comment was, he says, I sat in the Students' Union food court for 30 minutes shaking about the idea that I was going to have to go and ask someone a question. And he says, I finally got up and went over to them, and they welcomed me with warm hearts. And he said, I couldn't believe that I wasted so much time worrying about what people will say or what people will do. And the win was, man, this guy had had a moment, right? He had a changing moment, realizing that, wow, he wasn't going to get chased out. Now, had another guy from East Germany, absolutely fantastic guy, an engineer in fitness equipment. And he came to University of Lethbridge for an experience. And he says, he's a tall dude, GQ looking kind of guy. He says, when I go up to people, some people think I'm hitting on them. And I said, what do you mean? Well, girls will say, don't worry, I've got a boyfriend already. I've got a boy. I says, well, take a little pad of paper with you so it looks like you're doing something with purpose, not just looking for a date, right? And so he did that. I said, I can't believe how that worked. It's the little simple things. It's the signals that you're sending that really add value to you, okay? And believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. It hurts me to see cleaning people getting 20 bucks an hour when they could get so much more. Now, there's another classic example is people will go in and they'll clean a house. Adding value to me would be a cleaning person who came to my house and said, this is the methodology that I use, and I'll come either weekly or bi-weekly or whatever. These are the things that I will do, and then these are the things I'll do quarterly, semi-annually, and annually. And you don't charge 20 bucks an hour for it. You have whatever the rate is that's going there with value. And then those are extra value-added opportunities to be able to gain more money. I would pay somebody right now to clean the windows on the outside of my house because I hear about it every day. When are you going to go out there?
There's firms for that.
You know, there's firms for that. But think about the cleaning person could do that, right? Some people include their cleaning, all the materials, supplies, and others don't. And I'm going, why not make sure that you're not having to pay for anything out of your pocket when you're providing these services? Believe in yourself. Because if we come into a house that smells fresh after working till 9 o'clock tonight, it's worth everything to me. Find the niche. Find the niche. Yes?
You'll have to repeat it. What I wanted to say last time when you talked about this cleaning. What I wanted to say last time when he talked about this cleaning idea and the pricing is that there are people that are doing it as an individual business for $20 an hour. And then there are the people that are hiring you for $20 an hour, a firm, and they charge the customer $50. So that's why there's a lot of variance too. You have to find out if you're comparing yourself to apples and not oranges, right? Everybody know what I'm talking
and
about?
I'd rather put that money in my pocket and not be working for someone else.
Yeah.
And if I provide good quality value to them, it doesn't matter if I have a fleet of people, but there's the opportunity to build it, to put your values, identify people who have the same values as you, makes life a lot easier. You know, we often say we want A players in our group, but we'll often take C players because that's all we can find at the time. And I'm suggesting that you find B players who maybe don't have the skills that they need to be, but you can help them because they've got the same value base as you. C players don't have the same value base as you. They're technically skilled at it, but they'll drop in a moment from you. And you want to be able to build a relationship that's long-term. And it's all in understanding the values. what are your values? How do you expect to be treated as a client? And then when you have people working for you, you have to hire based on that. If you don't, you're looking for trouble. And a lot of businesses in town are exactly in that boat. And they scratch their head and wonder what's wrong with their services. Okay, so I went on a little bit, but I want to be able to show you now. The next slide is a summary of what we sort of did. So value proposition canvas, it helps clarify the customer needs. So when you're presenting your business plan at the end, if you have said, we went out and we tested with customers and this is what they said to us, that's worth a lot of points. So how to create the value so it's not just what you thought as the perfect mousetrap. Extract value proposition using the ad libs, so going through this and being able to come up with a nice, clear, crisp statement, or even shorter as to what you're doing. Validate, of course, by talking to the customers, and then take the insights and update your value proposition canvas. So, you know, you'll just find opportunity as you start hearing about people. But you want to make sure that there's enough people there that will buy your product, and there's enough priority and need that they will take it from you. And it's just not a nice idea. Like I was trying to stress before, if they're willing to connect with you as you're on this journey and you can provide them regular information, it would be fantastic. So Mocha Cabana, Angel Harper, she was here last year. She's an absolutely wonderful lady. She's opening up Mocha Local. They're doing a soft opening right now. And she's providing, much like, Chef's Table and these other ones that deliver food to your house and then already, not prepared, but all ready for you to prepare. So she's starting that. So she put a landing page together and she went out and asked people, what do you think of a local fresh produce and the meats and things of that nature? And she's got relationships with all these suppliers through her restaurant. And in a few short hours, she got 140 people saying, hey, sign me up. Tell me when it's coming. And that gave her enough confidence to continue. And she's been working on it for the last year. So the other component is, as you're doing this, often people just say, it happens in a minute. No, it takes time. And then the speed will start to pick up as you get more organized and you get some help to help you along on your journey. Okay. Now, some people, this business model, we don't just use it as startup, we'll use it for any business. So in our growth course, we go and say, okay, we're taking a look at this particular case, and there's some really neat cases that we've got, and what's the business model? So thinking about it. So when you leave tonight, start walking around, go past the Tim Hortons, go past the Slurpee place. What's their business model? Who are they serving? And what's their volume? And then if you really want to know about Slurpees, he's one of our business advisors at Tech Connect, and he'll tell you all about the Booster Juice world, as he has 8 franchises. And fascinating. So Tim Rempel, fascinating guy. So you want to know about franchises and setting them up, he's the guy to talk to. He does sessions at Tech Connect on that. And ATB does wonderful sessions on Thursdays. ATB Entrepreneurial Center, downtown Lethbridge, Jason Bacon, who used to be part of CEC, absolutely wonderful guy. You can go to him, and in Calgary, there's the ATB Entrepreneurial Centers as well. They bring top quality presenters that give you a wealth of information free of charge on Thursdays. So just take a look at their ATB Entrepreneurial Center website, and you'll see what's coming. And there'll be 30, 40 people there, and you'll be blown away at how popular that is. So
it's not every Thursday, so look at the calendar.
Look at the calendar.
And it's only an hour, 12 to 1, so I mean, we can all go for lunch, right?
Yeah, sneak out for lunch and learn some knowledge at the same time. A lot of you have been there, you know what I'm talking about. So this is a summary of it, and just the class. So here's some examples of people working on it in one of his sessions, right? So very, very interesting. You see how they've got their big value proposition right in front. They're using the color stickies and they're symbolically set up, the color stickies. And we can show you more of that if you're interested in more of that detail. Sure you got no questions? Okay, we're going to move on to the business model canvas. It will not take as long, but those 2 pieces are fundamental. Customers and what are you offering them? And I just think there's tons of opportunity in Southern Alberta for you to be able to look at opportunities, right? Charmaine, she's been in with us, and she comes from South Africa. Can you imagine her perspective on the city of Lethbridge? Having a conversation with Charmaine, why not? Let's learn. What's it been like? What do you see? What are the needs? What do you wish you had that you had in South Africa? She and her husband have come here. He's medical, and she's a brilliant individual who has her own product that she developed in South Africa, and she's trying to determine right now, is there a market for it in Lethbridge? And there is. Is that fair to say? There is, and it's very, very cool. But I'll let her describe the product to you when we're offline. Okay, let's get out of this and let's take a look at our last slide.
And I just got that one this morning, so if you've been to Google Drive and you couldn't find it, it's there now, okay? I think it was this morning.
At about 6, I think. Okay. So again, what we're going to look at is the other canvas called the business model canvas that you saw the videos on. And so here's a classic example of the first plain photocopier in 1950. To have built it would have cost a fortune. No one could afford to buy it. But it was easy to use compared to the old days. No risk on originals. You don't destroy them. Low operating costs and used plain paper. What a miracle it was at the time. But it was too expensive. So what did they do? They started a leasing component. I'm so old, I remember the IBM Selectric typewriters that had the self-correcting strips on them. Man, was that pure genius. And I can tell you that it weighed a ton, and it was $1,500. And back in 1979 when we bought it, that was a lot of money, and we leased it. We leased it. That gave you an idea. Think about dollars today compared to dollars back then. But here's a classic of what it was. And so business model describes the rationale of how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value. So you've seen some examples on the video already. So business model, your organization, you create something like lemonade. You deliver it through a lemonade stand. You've got customers who love the idea of lemonade, so they're drinking it, and they give you cash, right? So that's the full circle. You're offering them something that they see value in, satisfies them, and they're willing to pay for it. That's the business model in essence. What's yours look like? How does it work for you? So the business model, it's a tool to create and analyze business models. And let's take a look. You can, and you can see a whole bunch of them, create new business models really easily. So if you actually go into chapters, they often have a business model canvas pad of paper. It's about yay by yay, and there's about 50 pages in it. And seriously, they're selling those pads for the same purpose of just trying some creative ideas on paper because it's so cheap, cheap, cheap. And you just go and based on what you saw today, start plugging some things and start looking at it. So you can always constantly analyze and update. So again, the business model can be used at any point in your business time. It's not just at startup. So the 9 building blocks, and we'll talk about them. So the customer segment or segments that you have is fundamental. So which customers are you serving? So we've certainly talked about this. And what jobs do they really want to get done? Okay, so first part of it. Then what are you offering them? So the value proposition. So what is it? How can you state it simply? How can it be stated in such a way that it attracts people's interest right away? And then the channels. So how are you going to get to the people? Will you use the social media to connect with people, or will you need a facility? So the baker needs a facility, but they'll also then use technology to connect with people. So when you're at a farmer's market, I'm blown away if I give people my emails, I'm getting updates on when the fresh turkeys are available. People are getting it, right? So there's a lady that I buy all kinds of soups from. When she's got a new soup to try out, she sends me an email. We've got this new brand. How many can I bring in for you? It's not, you should try it out. It's, how many can I bring in for you? She's looking for a close on the deal. And I'm a sucker. I always get her soup because it is superb. and it saves a lot of hassle on our parts because we do like to spend our weekends together, even though I'm thinking of work and she's thinking of work. So this could be a brick and mortar, or this could be how you get to people. That whole channel. It's a channel of connecting your product over to the customer. And then what's the relationship are you establishing with each segment? So a lot of your types of businesses will be very, very one-to-one relationship. Others, it'll be a mass market approach, so the relationship won't be there strong at all. So if you look at different models that are out there, you'll find that people have thought about how important it is to have a relationship. And on some of these commodity businesses, it's not important at all. So they just have a very strong social media presence, and they got a website and the whole bit linking you and telling you, hey, here's our connection, here's our commodity for you. So you want to look at what that customer relationship needs to be. So when I hear bakeries, build that relationship. When I hear about physiotherapists, it's all about relationship. I went to one physiotherapist and the person had a cat in their house. I'm allergic to cats. Didn't know about it till I got in the house and had my back worked over pretty good. But I wish I'd known there was a cat in the house, because I paid dearly after I left that place and it never returned, right? So do you leave animals, pets like that out of your professional environment that you're working in? Darn rights. Darn right. So you don't lose potential customers in it. And the person was wonderful, but the cat's what killed me, right? And then how are you going to make money? So what's the opportunity? And you often hear that subscription services are the way to go. So as you know, TELUS and Shaw and Bell and those folks, you're paying for the service before you use the service. They have your cash at the end of the month for the next month to be able to utilize. What a wonderful opportunity that is. On these subscription systems, how can you set it up so that people are tied in? So look at these fitness facilities. So people are very busy at the fitness facilities right now, and they're paying monthly or bi-weekly. Bi-weekly is a smoother way of doing it than monthly, because they get another couple weeks payment out of that whole process, right? 26 payments in over every 2 weeks versus 12 months. There's that little up factor that they've got. So they've got the money coming from you, and it's always paid in advance. So that's very, very smooth. So think about how you can collect revenue from people. So it's most important. There's a ton of different revenue opportunities that we can provide you when you're looking at opportunities out there. It's not just buy something and pay them. It's linking them in. I was talking to one of the people here, and my wife goes to a lady who does hands and toes regularly. She is so busy working out of her house that she books for an entire year. My wife feels guilty if she doesn't show up and has to cancel, because she might lose her place in priority. I said, are you serious? Now, hands and toes weren't really worked on much 15 years ago, at least in our house. Look at how it's now an essential standard that has to be kept, right? Absolutely amazing. So, and this person is very kind, and she turns into being part-time psychologist and focuses mostly on nurses and teachers. So when my wife comes back, I said, so who's under more stress right now, nurses or teachers? And this lady knows, right? It's fantastic. But she is a trusted part of the family. And I've never met her, but I know her. What kind of relationship is that? So how can you strike that rather than just service somebody and leave, right? You want that kind of relationship. So she's tied in to paying this person. I think at some point in time, she'll pay even when she doesn't show up for fear of losing her spot. Amazing to me. Absolutely amazing. I just shake my head. So, okay, key resources. So what will you need in your business? And some people say, we don't need anything, but you've got to sit back and take a look at the resources. It'll be people like yourself. It may be facilities. It may be equipment. It may be some kind of technology platform that you need, okay? And definitely there's a dollar component in it too. So when we say key resources, what do you have to have in your business model to be successful? Now, a lot of people say, I'm going to build something. but you don't necessarily have to build it. You can outsource the building to other people. Well, I want to do it all. Well, you can't do it all. You want to be able to be focused on things that you're good at and be able to farm out things that you aren't good at. Charmaine's good at a lot of things, but the product that she gets developed, she gets manufactured in China. And so she had no intention of making this stuff herself. She's got a contact there, and she gets stuff done in China. I had a gentleman the other day come in, and he was getting some stuff manufactured in China. The Chinese manufacturer will now deliver exactly to wherever your customer is located in North America as part and parcel of the service. So the concept of having to do 10,000 units and ship them out in a boat en masse and leave you with all these SKUs in a warehouse in North America is changing. So the batch of one concept is coming into place where they can actually ship it. His item's only worth $79, and it's shipped in a mailing tube. And it's unbelievable. So this is the opportunities that are evolving with these logistics that's in the manufacturing world, and we want to be on top of it. So key activities. What's critically essential for you to be able to be doing? So is it manufacturing that you have to be doing? Is it the sales? Is it logistics? So one of the cases we're working on right now is called iBobs, and it's a real facility where a lady came up with creative glasses designs that weren't priced ridiculously off the market. And you can key in iBobs and you'll see what it's all about. She worked with Italian designers to identify the quality plastic that's in the glasses, and those Italian designers use a manufacturing facility in China for their product. So she struck a relationship with them, and she gets her products made in China, but overseen by the Italian designers. And then she has it shipped to her facility, and she opens every package and checks them before she sends them to her clients. Her glasses are featured in menswear stores. Menswear stores, because women go buy clothing for men, and when they see something that's there for themselves, they can't help but look and see what they're all about. A very different channel, that would be a channel example, than what you would normally think fancy glass frames would be. So you've got to think out of the box. And so when she was trying to hustle and sell her designer type frames to the traditional market, everybody was rebuffing her. They weren't interested. And then she stumbled across the idea, what if I put some in this men's store? And all of a sudden they're phoning up, we need more, we need more. And so she started her distribution through that kind of a mindset. Very creative, very genius, very, very cool. iBobs, EYEBOBS. Go take a look at her site, and I think you'll be quite impressed by the kind of product that she has. And partners. So some people would say suppliers. Well, suppliers are part and parcel of it, but who do you have to have a marriage with to be successful? So the example I just gave you with iBobs, it's the Italian folks, because they understand the quality of the plastics for these glasses. Okay? It was high quality manufacturer in China that she had the relationship with. Partners were menswear stores as well. So anybody that you need to have a relationship with is really, really key in that partners category. So when you're doing your business plan you basically will talk about each of these areas in a lot more detail. So when we talk about activities, let me go back there. You won't just say this is the activity. In your business plan, you'll give more description of it. And then in the appendices, you can give a lot more detail to give the reader an understanding that you really know what you're talking about, that you've checked it out. So I mentioned the Spanish restaurant. So they learned a lot about the food service industry, and they learned about all the different processes that are required to run a restaurant, and the ordering, and the cash settlements that have to take place when you're just starting up with your food suppliers. And the fact that they want, once you've got an account set up, payment every 7 days. I have people coming saying, what do you mean I have to pay somebody in 7 days? Well, in that food industry, when you're working, it's high risk for some of those suppliers because restaurants come and go. The average restaurant, we're told these days, is 8 years. And that's interesting. Some go sooner and some last longer. And some of the big players have been around for years. But it's a tough business to be in. There's no doubt about it. You have to have passion. But often people get into the restaurant with the passion, but not with the business acumen to be able to know how much things really cost. And they find out too late. So when we talk about a business model canvas here, you'll drill down now and take a look. How much does labor? So I'll give you an example of Angel Harper. With her ideas, she's figured out how many people she needs, when she needs them, what time of the day, during what day of the week, and what they're going to be doing precisely, and the procedures and processes, what they'll be cutting, what they'll be wrapping, what they'll be packaging. She gets into that detail when she gets past this model. Yes?
So when you talk, especially with entrepreneurs and startups, when you're talking about the labor concept, a lot of the time it's easy to say, well, we'll just have to work for free for the first 2 years or whatever, right? And I know in some aspects that's kind of the reality, but at the same time you have to factor in, you know, a wage and a salary into a sustainable business model. So where is the appropriate level to say, you know, if you can't pay yourself a fitting wage in X amount of years or whatever, like how do you plan for that?
So the question is labor costs, and you've got to start a business and you can't afford to pay yourself. So how long do you go before and saying, hey, we have to collapse? I would build a business plan that has a positive cash flow, unless it's in IT development, very quickly off the bat. I would be doing that. And if you're not making good strength by the 3rd year, then you're in trouble. But you should know that way ahead. So what we're trying to do is get you to look at this for free right now by using your head, so that you can start and set up a time frame and timeline in order to start to execute. And yes, you're putting free time into it now, but then you get more serious about it because you'll be promoting this to partners and other people, and you'll start to set up your relationships in regards to getting your product developed, or your product, you're developing it, space and things of that nature. You want to be able to get out of the gate quite quickly. Many people will start up, like let's say a plumber will go out and work. He won't pay himself a wage for the first year. Crazy. We don't want to hear anybody who has a business plan that hasn't included their wages in the business plan and says, we're going to pay out of the profit. No. That profit is being used for other things. It helps pay down debt, right? It helps you to be able to buy things that you need in the future. And last, like several years out there for most businesses, you might have a dividend paid to the shareholder over and above. Okay, I'll tell you some great TV or YouTube is Marcus Lemonis and the Profit. He says everything boils down to people, profit, and people, processes, and product. 3 Ps. So he's a multimillionaire that goes into an organization. It's an hour show on CNBC, but you can see some YouTube segments there. And he'll go and examine the place and say, where are they lacking, or are they lacking in all 3? And then he'll invest in the passion of the people, anywhere from $50,000 to a couple $1 million, and start showing them proper processes to be able to save a lot of time. Because a lot of people will start to be very inefficient trying to juggle all the balls in the air. So you really want to methodically think things out and tweak and adjust as you're building your business. Because you can get up and get going, but if you haven't thought of the demand increase and growth capability. So there were some people that I was working with, they signed a 5-year lease in a facility that was too small for them and they needed to move out quickly. But unfortunately, the lease had personal guarantees and they couldn't break the lease, nor could they sublet to anyone else. They were stuck, right? Because they had not thought far enough out. And did they really need to have a space in the first place based on the type of business they were in? And those were some of the things that you want to think about. Met some other people who had a wonderful idea. They had gotten together and they put things together, and two of them over a lot of wine and having a great friendship and hobby, and said, this idea will sell. Well, we need to order some materials. Well, they had no credit set up, and so they ended up using MasterCard, right? And then the shipments came in, and they had no place to store the shipments. And so they had some challenges in that area as well. And it went on and on and on. There's a local advertising company in town here that existed, and they had not checked their name to make sure there wasn't something registered. And they got a cease and desist letter from some folks in Calgary to have to change the name after they'd done all this work in putting their business together. And it just devastated them, cut their heart out. The last thing they needed is they were trying to grow a business. So the number side of it, the wise business people will take the time to learn the numbers. Most important. And I encourage you to do that. Because if you don't know where the money is, it's foolish. So I was hired as a consultant to go to an organization in town that would shock you. And I sat in an office, and it was all custom work and beautifully decorated. And there was an old brown wallet in the drawer. And the CEO was there showing me where I'd be working. And I opened the drawer and I said, there's an old wallet. He said, yes, it's mine. And I said, there's nothing in it. And he says, that's why you're here. He had not bothered. He was so busy. He was growing broke, right? And so you'd be surprised at how many people are out there that are growing broke. It's not what you think. I have a sort of son-in-law that's working at a bank in Calgary. It's absolutely shocking. People coming in with all the rings and suits and the whole bit, and they haven't got any money. They're leveraged to the hilt. So don't make any assumptions, but start to learn your numbers and your costs and work that, okay? Now, we're having Alana Rosenfeld come and speak from Kicking Horse Coffee at our RBC Summit too. Again, free of charge, March 8th on the Friday. Absolutely wonderful lady. I got to meet her back in 2003 when I was doing some work for those folks. They're so innovative that they had a dojo clinic in their facility. And so when I was there, every Tuesday and Thursday, they invited their employees to come in and get a physical workout with them in this dojo clinic. Well, I just recently had a heart attack, so I didn't decide to go and do any dojo clinic. I answered the phones and I picked the percolator packages up during that 1 hour period, right? So she's going to come and talk about her venture. And her business is worth $210 million right now. And it's in Invermere. And she sells super premium beans. And Kick-Ass Coffee is one of her brands. And she sells them into the States and Canada. She's going to come and speak to us. And I said, what will you talk about? And she says, I'm going to talk about values, I'm going to talk about leadership, I'm going to talk about brand, and I'm going to talk about people. I said, will you give us some horror stories? That's not my philosophy, Bruce. I don't look at things from a horror story perspective. So if that's what you need, I won't come and talk, right? This is a great lady. Wonderful, wonderful individual. So she'll be coming to speak as one of our keynote speakers in the morning. So I'd encourage you to come out and listen to her. Free of charge, all because of RBC's funding of our family and small business program. Absolutely excellent, okay? So do you get the idea? Does that help? So I would not set up that I can't work for 3 years at all. No, no, no. Come and see us, and we can look at things from a different angle. We have Bill Halley. He's an engineer from the past to Pratt & Whitney. He's worked in food processing facilities, all these different places. I brought him into a food processing facility the other day who's been around for 20 years, and they want to take it to the next level. We have all kinds of resources that can help you out. So when you've thought it out, come and see us, and we'll certainly help you out. Give you a different perspective just from multitudes of experience. And we have a whole slate of people that have all kinds of different qualifications for what you need.
Bruce, can you mention in front of the mic that on February 13th, you'll be doing cash flow and sales forecasting, and we'll talk more about it.
Oh, yes. So February 13th, I'm coming back to do the infamous cash flow, all right? And sales forecasting. And I'm a real believer in cash flow and sales forecasting. Now, when you're first starting off, it's a guessing game, but how can we reduce the probability of that guess? So I would rather be an informed risk than an uninformed risk. So I'm running a little late, so let's just finish it off here. Your cost structure. Most people don't know what their products cost. And we want to make sure that when you're starting up that you figure out what your costs are to make it. And there's often hidden costs that you didn't expect. And you need to really think it out from your source all the ways here. So for example, there's a person in town that opened up a retail clothing shop, and they would travel down to Coots to pick their product up at the border and travel back every week. And I said, what's that costing you? What's that costing you to be able to do that? And I thought it was absolutely very, very interesting. One of the challenges they had too is they thought, well, if we buy stuff, we don't have to pay tax on it. Not true. When you have inventory at the end of the year, you don't get to expense it in your tax returns. And that was a surprise to them. So again, don't make assumptions, find out the facts, and you'll go a long ways, okay? So cost structure is really, really important, and knowing what it is. And then, of course, the game is, hopefully your revenues exceed your costs significantly. Okay? So I'm a real believer in you have to have strong margin on your product. You really do, because that margin then goes and helps pay everything off. So when somebody says, well, I marked something up 100%, it means nothing to me. What is the market's price on things, and where are you going to add value or not? So one of my businesses, I could charge 110%, so 10% more than my competitors could. I had a reputation, we had a quality, and people, when we went and gave quotes to them. So I'll give you another example too. So what we found out is we spent a little bit more time with our customers, we would guarantee a sale. So Evan at Sleep Country spent time with me for an hour, sleeping and lying around on these beds and pillows and all that kind of stuff on a Saturday morning. Was not my idea, right? But he spent that time and I did a deal with him. We wouldn't go anywhere else right now. We were so pleased with it. It's that relationship. So we used to spend 30 minutes selling product at someone's house. We moved it up to 1 hour. And we went from 30% success rate to 60% success rate. All about giving them trust, giving them assurances, and we got the deals. Absolutely amazing. So simple things like that. And we're here and available to provide those kinds of insights to you all the time. So the last part is cost. And so everything you've got when you put this together is just a guess. So we want to be able to validate it by going out, talking to people, and getting an idea of what everything is. Amar was here. I set him up with an individual in town here who buys food product, and she was so impressed by his idea that she said, I will order your food product through my system. So he didn't have the financial background or the time or framework to be able to set up an account with these people. He just didn't have the dollars, the money, or anything like that. This person believes in him so much that they're using their account to be able to order food product for him. That's relationships, and that's the beauty of Lethbridge and the big Raymond rather than the little Calgary. And build those relationships and you'll go far. Okay, there's a little bit more here, but we've hit the reality. I want you to be on time for you fine folks. So thank you very, very much for your attendance tonight.